Hello and welcome everyone to our review of WWE Payback 2023. Some of you may notice that our predictions video is now not public. It's actually unlisted on a playlist. That's because Callum's audio wasn't in it. So I had to comment all of the predictions for this and for AEW All Out in the comment section. So unfortunately that video is not completely lost. You can still find it on the channel in the playlist, but I decided not to make it public because of the audio error. But we seem to have fixed that audio error now. So now
I hope so.
Yep.
Yeah.
So now we will review WWE Payback 2023 in this video, which was, as we said in the predictions, probably the least hyped pay-per-view of the Triple H era so far. Went in with not like terrible expectations, but I would say there was definitely a sense of it was cooling off a bit. But lo and behold, I thought that this show was actually quite fun overall.
I agree. I thought it was actually a really, really fun overall show, to be quite honest. I thought it was a very upper mid-card card. But I think it delivered pretty well.
Yep. I thought it was fairly consistent, and there's a couple of matches on this card that were actually really good. I suppose if I had to have... We're just talking not about the card yet. If there was one thing I will say about this show, though, or two things, really. Firstly, they used the same set they used for Raw and SmackDown, which definitely made it feel less big time than the other pay-per-views we've reviewed, the WWE. Like the Money in the Bank and SummerSlam sets were far more, enormous. And the sort of generic flat screen is not really my favorite. As much as there wasn't as much product placement here as there was on the other big shows, the cinnamon toast crunch thing for the Rey Mysterio Austin Theory match was not really... I did not appreciate that. I thought that was very cringe. But hey-ho. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's not as bad as they've been in the past. And it didn't, ruin the show or anything, but it was very distracting. But apart from that, I thought this show delivered in a way that I don't think I was quite expecting. It was quite a fun show on the whole.
No, I think this card was subject to not the best build-up. But I think for what they had built up, a lot of these matches actually delivered on what they were building. Mm-hmm. I think only a couple matches, I felt probably were just about average, slightly above average, and there were a couple of matches on this card that actually were really, really fun, really great.
Yep.
So that was very nice. On a 6-match card, consistently, it was a very pretty fun wrestling show.
Yeah, with the 6-match structure, this felt very much like a takeover, but with a slightly longer show. Yeah, I was expecting maybe, this will be a bit meh, maybe it'll be the worst one of Triple H's era so far, but no, I actually thought this was quite consistent on the whole. And speaking of matches that exceeded expectations, especially given how annoying and frustrating the build and the rivalry has been in terms of the booking, we talk about the opening match, which was the steel cage match between Becky Lynch and Trish Stratus, which is a dream match within women's wrestling. So, again, this has been a feud that started... Well, I guess the tag team started before this, but the breakup started a couple of weeks after WrestleMania, so this feud has been going on for way, way, way too long. And this match was supposed to happen at SummerSlam. I thought it should have, but it didn't. So there has been a lot of frustration about this feud, and I still think that it is worth criticizing that element of the storyline of how it's been handled on TV. But as a pay-per-view match, as a steel cage match, I thought this was real good. I really liked this match.
Yeah, this was a real good match.
Yeah.
This was a really good match. I think both Becky and Trish look great in this match. I think they used the cage to great effect during the contest. And yeah, I thought this was really fun. I think there were a lot of really cool spots. I think the wrestling was pretty decent.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought this was really good.
I also think this match was enhanced by the fact that these are two of the most charismatic women in wrestling.
Yes.
They have a lot of star power.
Yeah, you have someone like Trish who, I think it's fair to say that she's probably doing some of the best wrestling work she's ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think she's vastly improved since, when she was full time before. And I think this match, is especially like a good example of just like using a legend to enhance other talent to great effect and making everyone look really good.
Yeah. Yeah, she was
Yeah,
brought
I
in.
was thoroughly impressed by this match.
She was brought in by Vince in 2000 to be eye candy for the Attitude Era, but she's worked really hard, and it just seems like with time she just aged like fine wine in the ring. And she's like 48 years old. She's 48 years old, and she had an absolute balls to the walls steel cage match with Becky Lynch that basically anyone on the roster would have. It was really impressive. She fucking beat the shit out of her body, which was very respectable. One detail I loved is just before she got in the cage, some guy in the crowd, this was caught on film.
Yes.
Some guy in the crowd said, "Rebecca's gonna beat you tonight," and she said, "Shut the fuck up!" right in his face.
That was great. That was very funny.
Yeah,
very funny. Trish is great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were some real good high spots. A lot of WWE cage matches are very similar to each other because they have a lot of the same formula going into it and the way they're booked. But I think there were things about this one in particular that enhanced it. One of them is the star power. The star power for sure does elevate the matches, and I think that's something that WWE, especially, in their peak periods, they have a distinct advantage over a lot of other wrestling companies in that they, if I was to compare to say like there's cage matches in say TNA that on a technical level are exceptional, but they don't have as much star power in them. Like you think about like some of those Ultimate X matches. They're like really fun to watch because of the stunt work and the drama, but the competitors don't have as much, star power and charisma and drawing potential. Whereas something like this, Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch are two of the biggest names in women's wrestling history. A lot of people have said that have compared Trish Stratus as being like the equivalent of, like a Rock or a Steve Austin for the women's division during that time period. I think a lot of people would say that Lita is probably the Stone Cold and she's the Dwayne, given their personality styles, but they both have a lot of presence in the ring. There was also a lot of like brutality, not necessarily like a bloodbath, but there was a lot of focus on getting up close with the camera with the cage and everything. And they definitely didn't hold back. They definitely wanted to steal the show, and I think for a lot of people they really did. And I think the stuff that impressed me the most was that 48-year-old Trish Stratus was willing to take like a full-on superplex off the cage, which was fucking crazy. That's got some big balls there. And then of course the sort of big twist of the story was that for months Zoe Stark has been a protege, and Zoe tried to help her and it backfired. Becky Lynch overcame both of them, and then they had a falling out. So for Zoe Stark going forward, she's going to be... I imagine it was probably a good time to do it because Trish is most likely going to... this is like the end of this run for her. And so Zoe now is going to be on her own.
Possibly.
And it's sort of given Zoe a good spotlight under Trish Stratus. And as we both predicted, Becky Lynch won this match. And yeah, I thought this was a great way to start the pay-per-view, and it's a shame, it's a shame for the iconography that it wasn't on SummerSlam. Because this was fucking way better than the Raw Women's SummerSlam match we actually got, which was Ronda Rousey versus Shayna Baszler. This was like night and day compared to that. But it is what it is. It benefited for this show, and I think these women can be very proud of the match they had.
Yeah, I agree. I think there was a lot of really good spots in this. I like the spot a lot of Trish on the top of the cage, but being stuck within the railings and just hanging off the side. That was really cool. That was really cool.
Yeah, there was a lot of callbacks too. I mean, obviously Trish Stratus is Canadian, There was a lot of callbacks to Brett versus Owen in the cage from SummerSlam 1994. And, you know, obviously Trish being Canadian would be very familiar with that side of things. But yeah, I definitely think this is definitely probably one of the better modern WWE cage matches I've seen. A lot of the
definitely up there.
Yeah, it's a lot of the PG era cage matches are very watered down and quite formulaic. I thought they really, you know, they went all out with this one as far as they could go, and they told a good story as well. That's the other thing, is like it wasn't just a good cage match for the action; it was also a good story.
Yeah,
and, you know,
it was. But very well told.
And you've got one of the legends of the past and one of the legends of the modern day. You know, these are two Hall of Fame worthy women for sure. Two of the all-time greats for this division. So it's a natural dream match, and I'm just blown away at how impressive Trish Stratus's late career has been. You know, since she came back when they started doing, I think it was the Women's Royal Rumble, when they started doing that is when she came back to wrestle every now and then, sporadically. And she's been super impressive, and she's been a real asset to helping the modern day women's wrestlers have a sort of dream match from the past. Because there's not too many examples of that you can do compared to the men, because of how neglected a lot of the women's wrestling in WWE was in the past. But with this, you can do it, because Trish was actually great, you know, back in like the mid-2000s. And she's still great now, even at her age. But I think that's a testament to the fact that she's looked after her body and her health and her mind with a lot of, you know, yoga and exercise and all that stuff. The special guest host for this pay-per-view, someone who it has some spaces in his schedule because of the strikes, which for wrestling seems to be actually quite a beneficial thing, that, you know, we're getting this stuff. We have John Cena, who we saw pop up at Money in the Bank a couple of pay-per-views ago. He's back in WWE for a couple of months to quote-unquote have fun, I guess you could say. He had a very PG style promo off with The Miz. That was super, you know, super cheesy, as you'd expect from these two. But then we got the match between The Miz and LA Knight, with Cena as the special guest referee. And I think that is when the fun started, is when the match started, because I thought Cena was so funny in this role. And he was funny throughout the night, really, but I really liked the dynamic in this match, because it wasn't just a straight up, I support the good guy and I am against the bad guy who I have history with. Because it wasn't just The Miz, you know, having his beef with John Cena that he's had for all these years, off and on. But LA Knight also had some tension with Cena as well, which was really interesting. Because that's the kind of character that LA Knight has. He's not just an out-and-out white meat babyface. This guy has, you know, he has been a heel for a long time, and he's only really going through a transition now, naturally, because of the crowd reactions. He's finally being booked that way. But he still has an ego, he still has an attitude, you know, and he still doesn't like being confronted by someone like Cena. He's not just going to let Cena tell him what to do. He's going to snap back and have his way. Of course, by the end of the match, Cena, you know, held up Knight's arm and, you know, recognized him as the winner. But yeah, I thought this match told a good story between these characters. Obviously, from a wrestling standpoint, it's not like a masterclass in ring, but in terms of the story, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was quite fun, actually.
Yeah, I thought this match was fine. I think my main issue with it is I think the direction was very distracting, because they very much made it very clear they wanted to keep John Cena in frame at all times, unlike probably a normal match where the wrestlers are obviously the focus of how they're framed within the direction. Yeah. I did notice it quite a lot during this match, but I do agree that I think the role of Cena in this match was fun. I think it was interesting. I think it was played into the finish quite well. I think, you know, nice backs and forths with Miz and LA Knight, which I thought was a nice sort of pacing for the match. Yeah, I thought this match was fine. Not blown away by it. I wasn't expecting to be blown away by it. I think they told a relatively decent story. Would I have had it? Would it be something that I would have done if I was booking this match? Probably not. But I think for what it was, I think it was fine.
Yeah,
I think it was totally fine.
I feel like this is the match that would maybe be more fitting of, say, a Monday Night Raw instead of a pay-per-view.
Yeah, I think obviously I heard the suggestion that maybe making this probably like a 5-minute intense, like quick fight could have been a way to go about it to try and keep the crowd, because a match between LA Knight and The Miz is not going for like 10 minutes or so. It's not gonna, with the moveset of The Miz, it's not that exciting. It's not gonna really garner a big response from the crowd. So perhaps they could have done something like that, maybe. I think this was totally fine.
Yeah. But I tell you what, it does make me want to see a match between Cena and LA Knight, even though in ring maybe Cena's not
down the
capable of
road,
that.
sure. Down the road, sure.
Hopefully better than the Theory match, though.
Oh, it can't. Honestly, it can't be much worse.
Yeah, that was very disappointing, that one. But, I mean, I think the thing with LA Knight is, even if Cena was limited physically, they could just taunt at each other and people would like it. You know, they could do a lot of smoke and mirrors. But, yeah, regardless, I thought this was fine. I had fun. It was kind of a popcorn match, I would say. It wasn't really a...
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't like a great contest.
It was for LA Knight to get a big win on pay-per-view.
Yeah. Although I will say, he did, what would you call it? It was like I don't even know what to call it, like a launching back suplex. He did one of those to the Miz, and he got a really good air on it. That was quite a cool move. I think one thing I did like about this show is they did a lot of really good slow-mo cuts. So I'd give them props for that. There was a lot of good slow-mo replays on this show. That's actually something that I will praise about like modern WWE, is they have upgraded to high FPS cameras so they can show you slow motion in the proper frame rate. Because I remember back in the early HD days, it would be normal frame rate, and it would be very like not the best to look at with the slow motion stuff. But now that they've upgraded to the high frame rate cameras, it makes it a lot better to do the slow motion stuff. Makes it feel more like a sports presentation, which is very unlike the Fed. But you know, it's still capable of doing good things, especially under Triple H. So yeah, good stuff. And I want to see LA Knight and Cena do promos together at some point. I think that would be fun on TV. Maybe in Superstar Spectacle or Fastlane, they'll tag together or something. Who knows? I thought Cena was quite funny though. Like with his counting, he was so loud. He's like 1, 2.
Very loud.
Yeah.
Very assertive.
It was very playful as a referee for sure. And then after this, we had the Cinnamon Toast Crunch match with Rey Mysterio and Austin Theory. Rey Mysterio with fixed knees is always a pleasure in the ring. He's just such a mind-blowing athlete, like at his age. How old is he now? He's nearly 52. He's similar to Trish Stratus, right? He must be close to 50. But, you know, as always, Rey is just... He's just one of those guys where he just never seems to falter in ring when he's healthy. Obviously, he had that period of time in the early 2010s when he had so many knee surgeries that he could barely run. But ever since he rehabbed them back to normal, it's like 1997 all over again. And I can't. It's just insane. But yeah, this was kind of a foregone conclusion for us because I feel like, it was the right choice for Theory to lose the rematch. And I think they're telling a decent story of him sort of going more and more insane, after he's lost the belt. And hopefully they continue that, because I think if it was to feed into like a character change for him, I think that could be really productive, because he definitely needs it. But yeah, no, I thought this match, again, like the last one, this was fine. But, and there was definitely some, I think they definitely allowed Theory to show more of his in-ring abilities in this match than they have in previous months. Because a lot of his matches on TV recently have been really bland. And I think with Rey Mysterio, he was able to show off more of his athleticism, which has been missing from his matches in a long time. And he's definitely showing much more of a vicious side now that he's become desperate as a character. And yeah, basically the same thing like after the match with him hit the camera on his face, the freak out that he's lost another title match. There's something here, and I think there is potential to really, rehabilitate his career because he's in desperate need of it. Let's just say that. What were your thoughts on this one?
I thought this match wasn't a massive fan of it. Thought it just felt very much like a TV match on SmackDown because they've had this match on SmackDown before and it very much just felt the same. I thought the finish was decent. It's classic Rey Mysterio roll up victory win, which are always fun to see. But yeah, I just didn't feel like this was. I thought this was the weakest thing on the show, definitely.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it didn't help that it had a fucking sponsor flashing in your face all the time. That was very distracting.
Here's the thing, I think the barricade sponsors is always normally fine because that happens in all sports events.
Oh yeah,
it's the massive sponsor on the full screen on the stage where it's just like, come on, that's a bit too far.
The Titantron.
Very distracting. Yeah.
But I've always thought that flat square Titantron was stupid anyway. I've never liked it.
I don't like it. No.
I don't like how they get rid of the ramp as well. The ramp's one of the coolest things about an entrance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this being obviously this is the sort of first pay-per-view since I can't remember the last one that wasn't like a big event like in another country or some special staging like a SummerSlam. Probably since Chamber, I want to say.
Yeah, probably that one.
Yeah, and even then, obviously that this is obviously I much prefer how they set up this sort of international shows for big events. That I did for Backlash and Money in the Bank.
Mm.
I think that's a much more interesting staging for big pay-per-views. But yeah, this match was. I don't have much thoughts on this match other than I thought it was just quite middling.
Yes.
I think Austin Theory is desperate for a rebrand.
For sure.
We actually had a little backstage interview between Kathy and Becky with Tiffany Stratton interrupting her.
That's right. They've set this up on NXT.
And I thought what was quite fun is Tiffany apologized for the fact that she mentioned Becky in a list of NXT Women's Champions, despite Becky never winning one. I thought that was quite funny, quite fun.
So it wasn't a mistake then. It was an intentional mistake, I guess you could say.
It was, yeah. I've actually never watched Tiffany Stratton at all, so I've got no opinion on her. But she's a decent promo, seemingly nice, Yeah, sort of that same sort of like Mandy. It's pretty much the Mandy Rose replacement, but I imagine she does have her own stuff. I'm not just saying that to be she's an attractive blonde wrestler. She's obviously probably got more about her.
To be fair, when Mandy Rose was in NXT 2.0, she didn't have blonde hair.
No, that's true. That's true. Yeah. She was a brunette during that time.
Yeah, I don't think Tiffany's quite on Mandy Rose's level, but she also hasn't had as much time to develop compared to her.
No, Mandy Rose had years to develop from, when she did Tough Enough to last year.
She's better than early Mandy Rose, like pre-Otis.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah. But Mandy Rose...
Yeah, that was quite fun.
Mandy Rose during her NXT title run was actually really impressive. And it was a shame that it ended, really.
She came leaps and bounds. Yeah, came leaps and bounds.
Really. There was this one match she had, talk about Mandy Rose, where she stole... So one of the women's wrestlers had an injury. I can't remember if it was kayfabe, maybe it was real, but it was based on real, and they used it in kayfabe. One of the women's wrestlers had a knee brace on because of some injury, and Mandy Rose ripped the knee brace off and she put it on her own knee and used it as a weapon. She like kicked her with her knee with the knee brace on. That's like a really interesting thing I've never seen before. I don't think. I can't remember if I've ever seen it like that. But the fact that you not only you rip the woman's knee brace off, but you wear it yourself and then use it as a weapon. That's quite smart. Quite a smart like heel move. But of course the Fed couldn't handle that she has nudes, so you know, she's not employed anymore. Yeah, oh well. Anyway, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see Becky and Tiffany Stratton have a feud in NXT, and to see if
I think what they're doing with NXT has been very, very interesting. It reminds me a lot of the early NXT when they had a lot of guys from the main roster go down. Like you had Cesaro, Punk, you know, those kind of people going down and like helping out with the young talent. But it feels a bit more story driven rather than cameos.
I find it so interesting how there's that interview segment from NXT 2012 where it's CM Punk and Seth Rollins with Ryan Nemeth as the interviewer. And Punk's the WWE champion and Seth's the NXT champion.
Yeah.
And it's funny because both of those guys, Seth Rollins and Ryan Nemeth, do not like CM Punk at all. And have been very public in that.
Yeah.
Whereas, as he was known back then,
I imagine Seth, even though he has said he's a cancer, I feel like he would absolutely do a Punk match if obviously for the product.
Oh, he would work with him in terms of like the.
Yeah, he hates Matt Riddle. Yeah, he'll work with him. So.
Oh yeah, he'll work with him, but it doesn't stop the fact that he thinks he's a jerk. But yeah, that Rey Mysterio Austin Theory match was by far the shortest match on the card. Like it wasn't even close.
Oh yeah,
it's like 10 minutes max. But yeah, anyway, after that segment with Becky and Tiffany Stratton, which hopefully will set up an interesting thing with NXT, which Shawn Michaels seems to have come leaps and bounds with, because early 2.0 was really bad, and from what I've heard, NXT now is actually the best it's been in a long time.
Yeah, well, it's now the white and gold era, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
It's a lot more of the mix of 2.0, but with consistency.
Yeah, it doesn't quite have the star power of black and gold, but it definitely has...
No, but I don't think that's what they're trying to do. It's a lot more homegrown talent.
Yeah.
Which I think is always... Yeah.
This definitely feels more like the original vision, like it was back like in FCW.
Yeah, because I look
stuff.
at someone like Carmelo Hayes, and I don't think of him as an indie star. I think of him as an NXT star.
Yeah, and I mean, Ilya Dragunov is an indie star, but he's spent so long in WWE that he's more known for it now.
Yeah. But it's kind of difficult because there's a lot of people like the Creed brothers and stuff like that. There are people who have been there, obviously didn't really have much of a name on the indies or if at all, but they've come to NXT, they've come to WWE and trained and have gotten a lot better and gained, a lot of experience down there and have become very consistent performers. That's I think what they have been set out to do for the last year now since the rebrand to the white and gold, and it's really cool to see what they're doing with NXT.
And also, Shawn Michaels has gotten enough reps into where he's learned from his mistakes, and he's starting to understand how to be a booker, which is really good for him. And he's doing good stuff down there. He's also found the identity as well. He's made NXT feel different from everything else. It's quite camp, and it's very sort of upbeat. He's looking at, when you look at the market of wrestling, a lot of the alternatives out there are quite grungy and gritty or sports-like. NXT is like, if you think about something like, I don't know, like New Japan Pro Wrestling or, I don't know, AEW Collision. NXT is like the polar opposite of both of those things. It's very camp. It's very, youthful, and it's got that kind of... The best way I can describe it is that sort of tone you get when you watch like a teenage high school movie. It's got that kind of tone to it whilst also being a wrestling show. And I definitely think that appeals to a certain demographic, whether that be people who are young, or it's kind of those people who are trying to relive their youthful days during like the 80s or something, like that sort of very bright and I guess that's the kind of feeling I get from it. And it doesn't surprise me because when Shawn Michaels was, on top in the company was during the New Generation era, and it had a very similar vibe to NXT White and Gold. Of course, the New Generation era had a lot of shit in it as well, but that's Vince McMahon's fault. It's not the idea of what the tone wasn't a terrible idea. It's just that there was a whole bunch of very, very terrible gimmicks during that time, especially in the lower mid card for sure. But the good parts of the New Gen era, Shawn Michaels is definitely borrowing from in his sort of heyday, if you will. And, obviously there's lots of people on the NXT roster who are big fans of Shawn Michaels because they, grew up as kids watching him wrestle. It's kind of crazy to think that there's a good chunk of that roster that's younger than us. Like, how fucking weird is that?
Yeah, it's quite crazy.
Yeah. But, yeah, good on them. Anyway, going back to Payback, we move on to, for me personally, the match of the night. I fucking love this. The Judgment Day versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn in a Steel City street fight.
Match ruled.
For the Undisputed Tag Team Championship, this achieved so many things. The only real big complaint I have about this match is I wish that the Rhea Ripley Raquel match happened before it, because I think it would have been better to see Rhea run out for her surprise after she'd already competed. Because once she came out...
then because it's great for the story if that was the case, and for the narrative, because if Rhea had held up her end of keeping her championship, it is now on them to then finish the job and get the tag championships. I definitely agree. It would have made more narrative satisfaction. Yeah, for sure.
I would have probably... I'm not sure exactly how I would have reordered it. I maybe... Because you don't want to put Becky and Trish right before it, but you probably could have swapped this and maybe Rey Mysterio and Austin Theory.
Yeah, I think you definitely could have swapped it, yeah.
Yeah. That would have made sense to me. But, regardless, whoa, this match was so much fun. I mean,
this match was fun and epic.
It's not surprising when you've got a storyline like the Judgment Day, which has gotten so much focus on the Raw brand, but you've also got talents like Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn involved.
Yeah, just having an absolute barn burner of a hardcore match.
Absolute barn burner.
The actual Terry Funk tag team tribute match.
That's right. Kevin Owens took his overshirt off and he had a Terry Funk shirt on. He not only tributed Terry Funk, obviously it wasn't like a massive bloodbath, although Kevin Owens did get busted open, which was interesting, but they had to clear it off.
Oh, yeah, that's fucking awesome.
But it was also a tribute to the Hardys versus the Dudleys from Royal Rumble 2000, because Kevin Owens did the Swanton bomb off the railing through the table to Dominic Mysterio.
Dude, he ate shit on his back with that one. That was a rough landing.
Oh, yeah, but that's, Kevin Owens is no stranger to having horrible bumps.
No, that one though is just fucking. That was rough. That was rough to take, I imagine.
Oh yeah,
all on his ass.
Yep, he's gonna be bruised from that, big time.
Yeah.
So whoever sees his ass next is gonna be like, "Who the fuck spanked you?" Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's fucking. It'll be feeling that in the next couple of years, I imagine.
I loved Dominic Mysterio in this. He was funny. He was great. So funny. They did some really funny stuff with the trash cans.
They did some great stuff. Yeah, trash can on top of Finn, and then just hitting it with a bunch of kendo sticks was very fun.
Yeah. Yeah, they obviously they couldn't go all the way and go full hardcore because the WWE product doesn't allow it. But they tried their best to do something that Terry Funk would have been proud of, within the limits they had. And also, I love the detail of the last, couple of months. The big thing that's been screwing over Finn Balor has been Damian Priest's briefcase getting in the way. But in this match, the briefcase actually helped them win, which was a great
it was a really
detail.
good finish. There were some really good spots. You had obviously everything on the outside. The Finn during the whole thing, even after the match, just going, yeah! It fucking popped, man. I fucking love Finn in this role. He just feels so... It's like goofy, but it's so fun. I love Finn in this role. He's doing wonders right now.
Honestly, as a character, this is probably my favourite stuff he's done since the Bullet Club. He's so good.
It's up there, because he feels like it's such a different Finn, but it doesn't feel like it's mocking him. It feels like it's like a natural progression with him being in this role. I've loved the stuff they've done with the briefcase. I think the build to this match wasn't perfect. I think the dragging of the constant dissension between Priest and Balor has felt like it's been like stalling for the last 3 weeks or so. But I think all the spots they've done with the briefcase, I personally have really loved. I think it's really fun, goofy stuff, but it doesn't feel like it's taking the mick out of them. It just feels like you said, it's a great build-up to the eventual finish of this match, which was Dominic Mysterio actually getting the briefcase and winning the match for them. It was a really, really fun finish.
Yeah.
You also had the great the spot, just the visual of them tossing Sami and Kevin over a barricade or something, and they're out of shot. And then the guys Dom, Priest, and Balor's like, all right, so here's what we're gonna do. We're going to get them in the ring, and we're going to pin them. It's just their back and forth is so fucking funny.
It was
that's a great idea. That's a great idea, Finn. And then they turn around, and the visual of both Sami and Kevin in, hockey uniform, and Kevin just busted open, which was such a cool fucking visual. It was so fucking cool. And then just wailing with hockey sticks. That was fucking great. The Rhea Ripley spear through the barricade, that was also fucking awesome. You had JD McDonough breaking up a pin at one point.
Oh yeah, I forgot about him.
Building up his sort of character at the moment. He's played a vital part in them winning the titles.
It's really good stuff. It's such a happy accident that his name is JD McDonough, Judgment Day McDonough. It's so such a funny thing that's happened.
And also, I think the last 2 minutes, there was definitely moments where I thought, oh man, this could have gone either way. I thought at one point, Sami was going to get the win. I thought, oh, maybe Balor might actually win this. Then all the kickouts and back and forth. So you have then Dom come out of nowhere, knock Sami out with a briefcase. Finn just roll over and not realize he's actually won for a good 2 minutes. The fucking reaction of Dom just saying, we fucking won. And Finn's just looking at him, and then the belts. I love it.
Especially because Finn Balor has lost matches recently. He's lost a lot of big matches.
Yeah, exactly. But he's the one who got the pin.
And I loved
he's
it.
The one that got the pin.
I loved how after the match he was just like a pirate who's found his treasure. He's like, we've got all the gold, Sonny.
We got all the gold.
Look at that. We got all the belts.
Honestly, I fucking love Finn in this role. It's so fun. It's allowing him to be open up a bit, because obviously he's always been a pretty serious character. And this feels like the first time he's allowed to do something different, and it still worked really well.
Well, he's a real natural heel, though, isn't he? Because he was great.
He is.
This reminds me a lot of when he was in the Bullet Club in New Japan, and he was just such a smart ass. And he did the same. The thing you were talking before about we're gonna get them in the ring and pin them. That is Bullet Club Prince Devitt humor right there.
Well, it reminds me a little bit of Bullet Club Gold at the moment. It's just sort of they are actual threats, but they are goofy. They are, but it doesn't feel like it's mocking them.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing is that kind of spirit of Prince Devitt's Bullet Club has carried on through the different generations of it. Obviously, the Elite definitely take it to more extreme levels when it comes to their comedy, which is their own little style. But you're right in saying that, I think there is... I would love, and this is never, ever, ever going to happen because of, contracts and whatnot, but can you fucking imagine if Jay White and Finn Balor were a tag team? And, it would just be pure comedic pleasure. But you can also take them seriously as competitors as well.
Yeah, I'm just looking back at the end of the match, and Finn's face when they realise they've won the title is just fucking gold. It's just so good. Fucking
Yep.
love it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's the classic thing of a WWE heel faction having all the gold. You know, it is a cliche at this point,
Yeah.
but at the very least, it's, you know, this group has like come leaps and bounds over the last year. Like literally, it's been a year since, you know, Dom turned on his father and Edge and joined Judgment Day. It's been what a year it's been for them. Honestly, they've really like turned it around with Judgment Day.
Yep.
This past year.
Yeah, and I loved the sort of closing line with Damian Priest, who's just like, "We run the WWE." Yeah, great night for the Judgment Day, for sure.
They even gave him pyro as well at the end of the match, which is quite fun.
This is kind of one of their apexes in terms of their success in kayfabe, I guess you could say, and I think what's going to be interesting from here is now that they've indulged in their greediness and they've managed to pull off this victory. Now slowly we're probably going to see those belts chipped away from them, and it's going to start to become very toxic.
One thing I also like to add just quickly, because you obviously referenced Damian Priest saying the Judgment Day run WWE, and then you got Dominic Mysterio just going, and don't you forget it.
It's like it's like Scrappy Doo.
Everything about it. It's everything about it. Just that encapsulates everything I love about this fucking group. Obviously when it's booked well, because I think, like I said, I think the build to this match specifically hasn't been fantastic. I think compared to a lot of the other stuff Judgment Day has done, it's probably below tier. But yeah, I fucking love this. This was a great match, also, and you know,
also
awesome.
These four people before the Judgment Day, you could not imagine them together. They're all so different, but somehow it works. Somehow this very odd group of people who have nothing in common are really good together.
and you know what's so cool? You've still got Priest and the cash in to come. You've still got that to come. I imagine he's going to cash in before the end of the year. And that moment is just going to be another, like, look how far they've come, you know? I'd imagine around Survivor Series time would probably actually be the best time to do it. Let this, we'll obviously get to it later with Nakamura and Rollins. Let that go for a while. Let them have a really good match at the next pay-per-view, which I believe would be Fastlane. Let them have a really good match and maybe hint at the cash in over the next sort of weeks in lead up to Survivor Series, and then do the cash in then probably, or the night after, whatever. I think around that time would be the perfect time to do the cash in, and then have them go into the new year on the road to WrestleMania, and obviously you do the split around that time. I think they've got a really strong foundation to do something really, really cool with Judgment Day.
Yep. I would love to see, and they've never done this before, I would love to see them do a mixed tag team Survivor Series match.
That would be cool.
Whether that be traditional elimination or whether that be a War Games match, it doesn't matter. Either way.
Do you think they're saving William Regal for when he officially can actually appear on TV due to obviously always contract stuff to then eventually just say War Games, and why they haven't announced it yet?
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember when his AEW deal was supposed to end. I think
it was around November time or something.
I
can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with...
It was definitely a year, or something. I don't know.
Hey, I mean, if it's next year and if a certain person who's gotten fired recently for unprofessional conduct decides to come back with his tail between his legs, you could have William Regal yell War Games at him. Just imagine that, though. You put CM Punk in a War Games match, and you put him against all the people that really don't like him in that company. Like the people, like the Miz is one of them. Who else really doesn't like CM Punk? I guess you put Seth Rollins in there. Kevin Owens really doesn't like him. And there's probably someone else you could think of. There's probably a long list of people we don't even know that have beef with him. I know Hornswoggle really doesn't like him, but he's not on the roster. And also, imagine Hornswoggle in a War Games match. That'd be fucking weird. Anyway. But yeah, absolutely brilliant match. This was so fun. Like, there's tag team matches that I love because they're like really gripping, intense athleticism, and they tell like a really good serious story. There's lots of drama. Like the Bloodline Civil War match from Money in the Bank was a lot more serious than this match in terms of its storytelling, and it was great for that reason, and it had a much more like heartfelt ending with Jey Uso pinning Roman. But this match was just so fun. It was such a I had a fucking smile on my face for the whole thing. That really was what made it so unique. And it absolutely stole the show, and yeah. And also, we both predicted that Zayn and Owens would win, and we were wrong. And
we did. We were both wrong.
I'm actually kind of glad that I was proved wrong, because I think it was for the best.
No, yeah, I am glad.
The Judgment Day rules.
Because I am going to wonder what they're going to now do with Zayn. And, well, obviously Owens wasn't on Raw last night, so maybe they're just trying to keep him as a precaution, maybe. Don't know, we'll see.
Yeah. I know that there's rumors out there that, because not only have they given Priest his own Senior Money in the Bank briefcase now.
Yes, they did.
But there's rumors that they're also going to create like they're not going to have like Raw and SmackDown tag belts.
It feels like now is probably the time to just make them one belt. Well, technically two belts, but like mix them together and make new belts, please.
So I have two requests for that. Firstly, fucking get rid of that terrible design, that copper bloody
have them fucking pet
gladiator design is so terrible. Make a new design that's actually like looks like an actual respectable belt. And also, I would like it if they made the straps purple because of the Judgment Day. I think that would be cool. And then you could change the straps back when they lose it. A bit
not a terrible idea.
A bit like how what the Acclaimed did with their custom trios titles with the scissors and the pink strap. That's quite fun. Yeah. Anyway, so after this we had the Grayson Waller effect, which when this was advertised for this pay-per-view, I think a lot of us were like kind of groaning at like, oh, what the fuck's this gonna be? But of course, what happened was that his guest was Cody Rhodes, who does not have a match on this pay-per-view.
No.
And it turns out that the purpose of this segment was to announce that Jey Uso has been traded to Monday Night Raw, which was a twist I don't think any of us saw coming. I mean, maybe...
No, I wasn't... No.
I think the reason why we didn't see it coming is that when he quit, he didn't say, I quit SmackDown, he said, I quit WWE.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. And I guess to sort of just, get into it. Like, at first, when Cody said he had an announcement, at first I thought, oh, is he moving to SmackDown? I thought that'd be interesting. Maybe if finally going to start trying to go after the championship he wanted to win. But no, then they announced, no, Jey Uso has come to Raw. So, my issue with this is it definitely just comes across and it feels like that what they're doing is just putting the Jey and Jimmy storyline on pause. And that's what the point of this is. The only way they can really think about trying to prolong the story is to have it just be on pause until the Rumble. That's what it really screams at to me. And the fact that obviously they've already said on Raw is that they have to trade someone from Raw to SmackDown. Is like, but Jey, he quit. He quit the company, not SmackDown. So, I don't know, that's, I guess, such...
Yeah, because this felt like, when he quit, it felt like it had the same energy as when, Batista quit in 2014. That I understand, and I quit. It didn't feel like he was quitting.
Even though in that he was... Yeah. Yeah. This was... The idea of Jey going on his own, actually being a main player on Raw, I think in isolation is a really cool idea, and allowing him to get some actual time to now develop him as a character outside of the bloodline, because eventually you're going to have to, because Jay is, let's be honest, he's very popular now. He has, his entrance has people in the palm of his hands. It's really cool to see just when he does the taunt in the corner top rope and everyone's doing along with him. It's really cool to see. And so in isolation, I'm a fan of it being Jay going on his own, trying to make himself his own person, in a sense. But in the grander scheme of things, this is just a bigger problem of how the bloodline has just gone on for way too long. They should have dropped the belts at WrestleMania. We're going to keep harping on about it because it's just a problem that's affecting all of the top stories involving the bloodline and Cody. It's just, yeah, it's just they've made their bed, they're now lying in it and having to come up with ways to try and prolong the story when they don't really need to. It's just, yeah, especially with the segment on SmackDown last week, just really screamed to me they've really lost the plot with the bloodline, and it's quite sad to see. It would all have been sold if they just dropped the belts and have the end of it be at SummerSlam with Jay beating Roman, and that be it. And then they can move on from that. And then eventually you can maybe have Jimmy turn on Jay later down the line at some point. But it just feels like they've really fumbled the bag, and I feel like, yeah, they're just putting the feud now on pause until probably Rumble/Survivor Series time. Yeah, that's what it felt like to me.
That's kind of the issue with the WWE structure, is that they rely too much on wanting everything to be on the big pay-per-views. And whereas, you know, I feel like you should make every pay-per-view important. Maybe they're not all on WrestleMania level, but they should all have, you can expect to see any feud blow off at any of these shows. Because that's what a pay-per-view should be, is it should be a climactic point for a lot of feuds. But yeah, you know, it is what it is. But having said that, it is cool seeing Jey Uso interact with people he's had previous beef with, like Drew McIntyre and Sami Zayn, and on Raw, and that has been interesting. But I think long-term, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle his character without the bloodline, to see how he can go on his own. And more importantly, it's very concerning to see what they're going to do with Jimmy Uso on his own, because that's... I don't know what the hell they're doing with his character. It seems very weird.
And the fact that probably Roman's not going to be back for another month is very worrying for SmackDown. It's really lost its edge.
That's right.
In the main event mail.
It has lost its edge, hasn't it?
Yeah. No, there you go. Yeah, it's... But I feel like it's funny because I think when the draft happened, we both felt like that SmackDown was still quite strong, even though it had lost Gunther, Imperium, and that, and obviously Drew McIntyre. It felt like that they still had a lot going for it, but it feels now that SmackDown is really lacking in its main event scene. There's a lot missing, and I feel like the women are sort of trying to pick up the slack because obviously we've talked about their division is very stacked at the moment.
Maybe if they didn't maybe if they'd actually put in a bit more effort to do stuff with AJ Styles and Karrion Kross and Sheamus, then we wouldn't have this problem.
Yeah, Sheamus is a person who's just been sort of lost in the shuffle at the moment. It's really sad to see because he gained so much momentum at Clash of the Castle last year, and obviously he had a great match at WrestleMania. But it feels like since then they've really not giving him anything to do, and it's just kind of sucks.
This is the first time in a long time that the men's roster, I'm not going to say women's roster because SmackDown still has the better women's roster, but the men's roster, for the first time in a very long time, I feel like Raw actually has the better roster now in terms of who's actively participating in it.
Obviously, you got Priest, you got Balor, you obviously got now Jay, you got Cody, you got Seth, Nakamura, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Drew McIntyre. You know, they've got a lot of big guys on that roster.
Chad Gable.
Gunther, who's Chad Gable now. Yeah, you've got like 12 to 15 guys alone on Raw who could all easily fit into like a program with Rollins for the world title, have a big storyline with the Judgment Day, or even just craft a story of their own between two people. And you've even got people like Bronson Reed and Ciampa and Gargano who are still like waiting to really break out into that role.
Even someone like LA Knight, who's on SmackDown, has been coming to Raw.
Exactly. It feels like he's been like more of a Raw person, and that's one thing. It feels more like they should have put LA Knight on Raw during the draft. I feel like that's what we were all expecting, and they never did it. And now SmackDown sort of suffering from this sort of brand clash between Miz and LA Knight. Hopefully now maybe Knight can do something on SmackDown and try and pick up the slack for them.
Yep, and Brock seems to spend a lot more time on Raw these days as well.
He's very much a Raw person at the moment when he's around.
Yep. Because they're trying to keep him away from Roman.
Yeah. Real shame, because SmackDown a couple months ago was really hitting all fronts, really.
I wouldn't say all
Raw
fronts.
Was sort of slacking. And
I wouldn't say all fronts, but a lot of them, yes.
Yeah. And Raw for a long time was really struggling for its main event picture post-Mania. Yeah. But now it feels like Raw, because it has so much, and obviously has the 3 hours to fill, has a lot of things to play with.
I think they overestimate. Not is it overestimated or underestimated? I can't remember. But they misjudged.
Overestimated.
They misjudged sending Austin Theory to SmackDown and thinking that was a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had to trade him to SmackDown because they were bringing Gunther to Raw, but Gunther is so much more valuable.
Yes, exactly, and it's been proven with this feud with Chad Gable.
Yeah, and also they've brought Wade Barrett to Raw as well and replaced Kevin Patrick, who's now on SmackDown. So you've actually brought the better commentary team to Raw as well, which, you know, it seems like in this specific sort of trades and draft we've had recently, that at least for the male side of things, Raw seems to be getting way more than SmackDown.
Yeah.
And you remember the period of time when Raw didn't even have a world champion?
No, for a good 2 months.
Yeah. Well, more than 2 months. We're talking like a year from after Roman won it, the WWE title, until they brought in the World Heavyweight title for Seth. That was like a year that they didn't have a world title on Raw.
Yeah, real sucks. Real sucks at the moment.
Yep. Oh, well. I mean, yeah, and if they bring in Kairi Sane and they send her to Raw as well, that's another thing on their side. I don't know if they will do that. Not sure. But, you know, it is what it is. I didn't really speak much about what Grayson Waller actually did on this. I guess they kind of did a thing with Cody and Grayson Waller's dynamic before they brought out Jey Uso. But I think my favorite thing...
Yeah.
My favorite thing in this, apparently, from what I've heard, was a big topic of discussion backstage at Payback was the firing of CM Punk, which happened the day before at Collision.
Well, no, it happened hours before. The announcement happened hours before the show. Because this was on a Saturday night.
Oh, you're right.
And he was fired Saturday night. This happened before Collision, and obviously this was happening at the same time.
That's right, yeah. So the topic of CM Punk's firing was hot on the mind and was a big discussion backstage for everyone on Payback, which was interesting. And after Grayson Waller was super kicked in the face, he posted a picture of him icing his bruise with a Pepsi can and saying Jey Uso was so unprofessional he should be fired, which I thought was really funny. They clearly... If CM Punk were to come back, I mean, I know he did visit Raw earlier this year, which was insane. But if he does come back, you can guarantee there's going to be a lot of banter in that locker room with people saying all sorts of things to him. But he can take it. Can he? Can Pepsi Phil handle the heat? Especially after everything he said. I'm very curious, especially with what you said about how Survivor Series is in Chicago. I assume it's at the Rosemont Horizon, I believe, which is now called the All-State Arena. That seems to be WWE's Chicago State Arena they usually go to.
Mm-hmm.
I think the segment was a really interesting idea, with a good twist to it. But the problem with it is that the angle where Jey Uso quit WWE did not set this up in the right way.
No.
And
it's only been 2 weeks, so...
I feel like it would have been better if he just left it more vague. If he had just said, I quit, or had just said, I'm out of here.
I'm out. Yeah, I'm out. Because that fits in with what they've been doing.
Yeah, if he just said, I'm out, and it was left up to, like, interpretation as to what the hell he means, and you just have the commentary saying, what could this possibly mean? And then it's revealed here that he's going from SmackDown to Raw because he knows that the Bloodline aren't on Raw. Similar
to what Ray did. You know, just don't do that.
Yeah, I think that would have worked better.
Yeah, it would have worked way better. Obviously, you still have a lot of issues, but at least that would have been better.
Then after this, we had the Women's World title match, which we don't get that much of since WrestleMania because of, number one, Rhea Ripley's knee popping out in most matches, and number two, because there's not much of a division on that side. But we had Rhea Ripley versus Raquel Rodriguez. If you want Callum's thought on Raquel Rodriguez, watch our 15 overrated wrestlers video.
I forgot to put her on my list.
She has a back. She has a back.
She does indeed.
So here's the thing with this match. I think the in-ring work was fine. I don't have an issue with it. But the problem is, it is so hard to get into Raquel as a babyface when Rhea Ripley is so damn cool.
Exactly, yeah.
Rhea Ripley is just too likable.
Yeah. Rhea is just great. Rhea's just great at everything she does. She's such a unique wrestler on the women's roster. She really is. In a similar vein of like Asuka, but they're obviously not the same. But like they have the same sort of like charisma of what they're trying to do, what their gimmick is, and what they're trying to represent. And I think Rhea just does her job so well. She has a great look. She's just brutal in the ring. Her nose was like cut up early in the match, but it looked fucking awesome because it's Rhea fucking Ripley.
Yep.
Like she's great. She's just really good. She's just really good at what she does.
Extremely strong as well. Both of these women are very strong, which allowed them to do a lot of power stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like Rodriguez did struggle a lot with like her power because there were multiple times she tried to go for a power bomb and she kind of fucked it, especially one time in the ring. Like she fucked it big time, unfortunately.
Yep.
But yeah, this match was fine. It was another TV match. I think there.
Yep.
Rhea looked great. I think it's probably the best Rodriguez has looked, on the main roster in a long ass time. So like, it wasn't a terrible match. I think it was better than the Theory match by a bit distance.
Well, it was much longer.
Much longer. They gave it time. They tried to, get the crowd involved. But at the end, I think they were sort of into it.
I would agree that I would agree that it's a better match than the Theory match, but I also think that they're actually doing a lot more with Theory's character as a result of the match than they are with Raquel. Because I feel like Raquel's just going to go back down the card after this.
Yeah, most likely, yeah.
Yeah. But, it was fine. Again, like I said, I feel like this should have been earlier. And this definitely felt like a come down after that street fight match, for sure. This was a much less intense match.
Very much so.
But, I don't have a lot to say about this match. I think it was the most standard one of all of them. So. But, at least the women's world title is getting something on pay-per-view, which it hasn't done since, WrestleMania?
Yeah.
I think.
Feels like it. But before that, we had John Cena having a backstage interview with Priest and Balor.
That's right. And Cena was dressed up with a bow tie and a coat, and he was splitting his legs to make them look taller.
Yeah, but I thought that was the best. I only noticed that when someone pointed that out online. I was like, yeah, he actually is, because obviously Cena's actually quite tall, and he's taller than Balor, if I remember.
But he's taking the piss out of the fact that they have to do that.
Yeah, I think that's quite funny.
I remember it was always Tom Phillips who had to do that because he's really, really tall. And he always had to, like, bend his legs down so he looked shorter than the wrestlers. It was so silly. But it was very funny. This was a very funny interview, I would say. And Cena not taking it seriously in the slightest. Much more fun host than someone like The Rock is, because Cena doesn't try to take himself too seriously. The Rock, I mean, even though The Rock tries to have good one-liners and have fun, he tries to get himself over too much, whereas I think Cena is a lot more self-deprecating, and he doesn't care about the spotlight.
He can be, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think Cena was trying to just sort of enjoy it and entertain, if you will, with his sort of, very cheap. I have to say, after the sort of very turbulent week with the CM Punk Jack Perry drama, I was feeling quite, sort of tense about a lot of stuff wrestling related. And also going into these two shows, there wasn't much hype. Obviously, we were proven wrong by that. But I was particularly feeling a bit of a hangover from the All In show, and also the tension from all the drama that's been going on, and sort of rolling my eyes a bit, can we just stop this and actually just have some fun for once and not have to worry about fucking backstage bullshit. But one thing I liked about this show is it felt like a bit of an escape from that, and it was just a sort of a fun show that I could watch without having to really be concerned about wrestling, and instead just enjoy it as a fan. And I felt like the sort of the safety net and the sort of almost the comfort of having a WWE pay-per-view with John Cena on it kind of made me feel all fuzzy and like I was a kid again, if you get what I mean. There was something about this show that really lightened my mood in a week that's been quite turbulent for wrestling. So I will say that. But yeah, that interview segment was fun. And I think what I liked about Cena was he didn't overstay his welcome as host on this show. He only had two major things.
No, I'd agree.
After the first match and before the main event. Of course, we got video packages for this main event, as the Japanese promos that Shinsuke has been doing about Seth's back have been really good, well produced, and with the subtitles. And Shinsuke brings a lot more serious menace, and he's a lot more believable as a threat when he's speaking Japanese. He is, obviously I can't understand what he's saying, but he has so much better energy and aura when he's speaking in his own language, to where I can believe that I would imagine he is actually a really good promo in Japanese, because he has so much charisma. But I love how that set up the story for this match about the targeting the back, and Shinsuke playing into his heel side, being, putting it all on the, trying to make it all about the violence and the back targeting and all that stuff. This was 26 minutes, which is, pretty long. Not unheard of, but pretty long. But yeah, I thought this was solid. The crowd were definitely into the entrances, for sure. I thought this is definitely one of the best Shinsuke entrances we've had in a while. They definitely put a lot more pomp and circumstance into the presentation. And I know that Triple H likes to do that with his main events. And yeah, I definitely feel like this was the most, the hardest that Shinsuke has tried in a match in quite some time.
Yeah. What I liked about the match itself, I think it was definitely a more slow build-up to the last 5 minutes. I think the crowd very much were not super into this when the bell rang, but I think it slowly started to build by, towards the end. And I thought this was a really good, I think it was a good main event. I think it's not my favorite Rollins or Nakamura match from either of them. It's not on that sort of level, but I think it was a really good main event. And I think there's a lot these guys can do in a future match, because they obviously interacted on Raw again, so we're going to get another match at some point. So yeah, I'm definitely into seeing another match at some point.
Yeah, well, I mean, Nakamura is... It possibly might be to do with the restrictions of the WWE style. It also might just be because he's trying to protect his body. But he is definitely... His best years in the ring are definitely behind him. His peak was in New Japan. His New Japan matches were insanely good. And I think his early stuff in WWE, especially the NXT days, there was definitely a lot more to his stuff in ring than there has been recently. But one thing that Nakamura can do really well even now is the storytelling. He definitely tries to tell good stories in the ring, uses, expression and showmanship, which is something that you don't lose with time. This is something that, you know, you can still show off. But I have always gotten the feeling in Nakamura's WWE run that he's trying to preserve his body and not, you know, end up in a wheelchair when he's older, which is, you know, good on him for making that choice for his health reasons, but he definitely isn't having his strong style matches like he used to. But yeah, no, it was a good main event. They told a good story. I would like to see a rematch though, because I think there's more you could chew off the bone with this feud. Possibly at Fastlane, who knows? But yeah, I wasn't complaining. I think the one thing I will say about the show is I don't think this crowd was as hot as I would have liked. I think they were okay, but it wasn't the best crowd. It certainly wasn't the best Pittsburgh crowd I've seen.
No, it was it was fine. A fine enough crowd, but it could have been better.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked this match, but I think the reason why this went on last is because they want to honor the world titles. But if we were talking specifically from like a card quality perspective, I actually think you could have made an argument that the street fight match would have been more fitting as a main event to end the show. But I also see why it was done this way as well. I personally feel like the Judgment Day match felt more like a main event than this did.
Yeah, definitely.
But anyway, I was not unsatisfied by this main event.
No,
I'll say that.
No, I wasn't either.
Yeah, these guys are still very consistent when it comes to their ability to tell stories in the ring and as athletes. So yeah, don't have much else to say about this match though, other than that. What I can remember.
I thought it was a very, very good main event. I think there was a lot of really good striking from the two. I thought there was a really good spot of like Seth on the top row going for a superplex into a Falcon Arrow, but then realized, no, that's going to really fuck up my back. So instead did something else, and it was less effective on his back. But it was a really cool spot.
It was good psychology, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Really good stuff.
I do think maybe that this, given that it was the main event, I think this match did need that extra little something, and maybe that's why they're waiting for the rematch. Because I feel like there's more you can do.
Like they gave this match like around I can't remember how long the match was, but they did give it a lot of time.
26 minutes, yeah. It was long.
Yeah, they gave it a lot of time.
Yeah, they definitely gave it time, but I still feel like there is more you could have tapped into. And if they do a rematch, I'm interested to see what extra gear you could get out of it. Because I know I've seen both of these men do even better. But yeah. This is definitely I think this match was definitely helped by how well they've handled the feud on TV with the promos. I think that really it really drew way more interest in the match itself, which was nice. And yeah, again, like the stuff they did on Raw after was really interesting, and yeah, curious to see how we go from here. So yeah, anything else you want to say about Payback? That we sort of missed if we did? Miss anything?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Obviously, at the end of the when the show went off the air, Shinsuke actually attacked Rollins on the ramp, so indicating that they were going to continue feuding. So,
if they were to do another match at Fastlane, like if they were to add a stipulation to it, what that could be and what they could get out of that, I would be curious.
I imagine, yeah, there will be possibly another match.
Yeah. So yeah, I went into this pay-per-view with not like terrible expectations, but fairly low expectations, and I was somewhat surprised. I thought this was actually quite a fun show. On the whole, not a great show, but you know, it was definitely worth it for the Becky Trish cage match and the Judgment Day Kevin Owens Sami Zayn match for sure. Those two definitely were highlights. And the rest of the card was just sort of solid, really. And there was some fun little things with Cena here and there. Yeah, overall, I'd say this was just sort of a solid pay-per-view, and wasn't massively exceeding expectations, but it was, it was good on the whole. A good sort of standard, I'd say, for a WWE show at least. I wouldn't say there was any.
Yeah,
I think the main thing is, I don't think there was anything like bad on the show, which is nice.
Oh no, there was nothing bad on the show, which I think why there's a lot more positivity out of it than there would have been if there was like, because none other than the tag match, I don't think anything else was like, well, and the steel cage match to be fair, everything else was sort of like on the average scale to very good, and we had two very, very good matches, one being I think like a very great hardcore match. There was nothing outright bad on the show. I think the closest one for me was the Theory Mysterio match. But even then, it wasn't like terrible.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought there's in terms of B shows, this was like, big thumbs up.
Yeah, like it didn't hit like as many highs as say SummerSlam did, but I feel like it didn't have as many lows either. SummerSlam had way more issues than this show.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, good job.
Like this show, like we said in the build-up, this is a show that probably, other than a couple things here and there, lacks a lot of star power. Obviously you just didn't have Cody wrestle. You obviously had him on the show, but it was for an announcement. You obviously no Brock, no Roman, no Bloodline stuff. It's a show that, going into it, not a lot of expectations, but thankfully it's still delivered a very good show.
And I also think I would say that this is not a mistake in saying that I think WWE definitely tried to cater more to their audience on this show, knowing that within the wrestling sphere, this pay-per-view was sandwiched between two very big AEW shows, with All In and All Out. There was a lot of pressure on this pay-per-view given how much it was having to, achieve, given how it was surrounded by those two shows, and also the fact that Payback is not seen as one of the bigger shows. So they didn't put many eggs in this basket, but I think they did a good job at doing what WWE does specifically. What makes them unique. It was a very fun sort of popcorn show, really, and it had a lot of, it definitely did what they do best. And like we said, that street fight had me grinning ear to ear for many reasons. So yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fun show. Very fun show.
So yeah. Now I won't address the predictions yet. We will be doing that at the end in the All Out video, because we compounded our predictions for both this show and that show. So as for who won the predictions, I will address it in that video, and you can go check that out, which will be the next upload on the channel after this one, which will be the AEW All Out 2023 review. But apart from that, that was Payback. Very enjoyable little show. Next time with WWE, we have Fastlane. Hopefully that one also delivers as well. And hope you all enjoyed. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.